the three of us had together, along with Chris Jager, our emergency management director, just talking about the letter that the county had received from FEMA asking about land use authority and what was it, the participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. I think you're both aware of that letter, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And from my understanding, other counties, other townships, other municipalities across the state are receiving these?
Yes, that is correct. There were 2 other counties that received it at the same time Ramsey County did, and there are additional counties that are receiving it here this spring.
Okay.
It is focused on counties at this time.
So, Aaron, if you want to talk a little bit about the what that letter meant and some of the expectations that the FEMA has of the county, if you wouldn't mind sharing your expertise and knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's okay, I'll share just a quick. It's a presentation in name only, but just a couple of slides, kind of showing what is where things are and a little bit of the why. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So again, this is the FEMA township study, and just a little bit of background. The what, as was mentioned, this is related to the National Flood Insurance Program in North Dakota. And as the first bullet point notes, the National Flood Insurance Program must be applied by the Land Use Authority entity in an area of the state. So in North Dakota, that could be either a city or municipality, a county, or an organized township, also termed a civil township. And now where this gets tricky in North Dakota's case is that organized townships are a rather unique concept to FEMA and the nation as a whole. So the why now, what has spurred this study is that there was a change to the status quo recently in 2022. So in the rest of the country, land use management is between the city or municipality and the county. It's either or, there isn't a third township-like entity in most states. However, in North Dakota, we have townships. And so for the longest time since North Dakota was part of the National Flood Insurance Program, it actually was applying or looking at flood insurance policies in North Dakota at that same city or county jurisdictional level, and not necessarily taking into account the township authority. And so why this is important is that if a township is organized, then the township is the one that has land use authority for zoning, development, and the county is not the authority unless the township has given that authority to the county through agreement. So where this started is that there were 3 National Flood Insurance Policy claims that were submitted and reviewed. And in 2022, FEMA basically changed their status quo and recognized for the first time North Dakota's unique nature of townships having a third level of zoning authority. And because the 3 National Flood Insurance Policies that were submitted were in townships that did not participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, and those townships did not have agreements with the counties to manage the land use authority on its behalf, those policies were denied. And so what that means is now as a result of that, people realize that there are more than 3 of these type policies in the state, and I think there were over 90 that they identified as being potentially suspect, the policies themselves as being incorrectly written to the incorrect zoning authority or land use management authority entity. So FEMA on its own, with its own dollars, is conducting a statewide study of any county that has or is willing to have township responsibilities granted to it through agreement. And so we are aware of many counties throughout the state that already have these agreements where the county is administering land use authority from the perspective of National Flood Insurance Program land use management on behalf of townships through agreements. We're also aware that there are many counties that want nothing to do with this type of authority. So FEMA right now is just a data collection exercise, which counties can do it or want to do it or are doing it, and which counties do not. And then from that, FEMA will then look at next steps as it relates to any policies that are denoted as being applied to a county, but are in a township that is a civil township or otherwise an organized township. And so just as a flash from a reference, this map there's a lot going on, but essentially anything you see that is red with, let's see here, red or green with cross hatching in it, those are all the civil or organized townships within the state that we are aware of. And again, we get our information from the county auditor's office. And any of those areas would have their own land use authority requirements that would supersede or be in addition to county oversight, unless those townships have given that authority to the county through agreement. The areas in blue are those areas where we know a floodplain exists that has been identified by FEMA. So if you see an area that is blue and green, that means the township participates and there is a floodplain present. If it's blue and red, which is in most areas that exists, that means that there's a floodplain present according to FEMA, and the township itself does not participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. So this is just kind of showing the scale of what could be out there. And again, what FEMA is looking to do is just get a status quo, what's on the ground now via agreement, and how do we then best prepare ourselves through FEMA state and partnership with the local communities to address those areas, to make sure that the townships are well aware of where they stand in this matter, and if counties are willing to step in and take some of this oversight or regulatory burden on behalf of the township, making sure we put the different entities in communication with each other, with partnership with the state, to make sure we can find a resolution that provides coverage as needed throughout the state for insurance holders. So I guess with that is, again, just a high level overview of where we come, why we are here. And I guess we can answer any questions related to the study, the township issue, or anything else that may come up.
Aaron, would it be possible to get you to email that to me, and so I can share it with the other commissioners? And that map.
The presentation?
Yeah.
Or
Yep.
Yeah, so that map does show areas that, like I said, we're aware of civil townships and based upon what the counties have given to the state. It may not necessarily be every organized township because, some counties are better at tracking their information than others. But there is a disclaimer on that map, but we certainly can get you that presentation, so it can be shared. And again, it's what we know of as right now, but it may not be the full picture of what's actually out there. That's part of why there's a disclaimer on the map.
Do we have any of that in place now?
Any of
The
land use authority from townships? Yes, I think Candy had sent out a list of townships that they have. There's 15 of them.
12 that fall under county and 2 or 3 cities or something.
Yeah. So that's something that we could probably maybe send out an email to our township supervisors or our township boards, and just see if they have any record of relinquishing that or authorizing us to have that. And I don't know if the list has changed over the years. Certainly there's some townships that do their own, and there's others that have asked the county to do. And so Lee, you have that list there.
So, there's 12 counties and 3 cities.
12 counties and 3 cities that,
Well,
Currently-
have adopted the county, so I was assuming that means that they have
Oh.
adopted everything. You know, but if we're running the flood management, those counties would be under our control.
are you able to hear that okay, Aaron? You may have to speak up. Use
I
your,
just cut it, a bit of it.
So there's 12 counties or 12 townships in the county that have adopted the county as their zoning authority, and 3 cities. So I would think that would fall under our jurisdiction. There's 4 townships and 3 cities that have no record of any kind of zoning, so I would think that they don't have any floodplain managers at all then.
So it is our understanding that as long as, Ramsey County has a floodplain administrator identified and is issuing floodplain development permits and managing land use with that perspective, with a zoning ordinance that is current and approved by FEMA in their participation, that those 12 townships and 3 cities that have yielded their authority to the county, anyone within those political boundaries would be able to purchase flood insurance. Now, that is our understanding. And again, that is the exact goal of this study, is to understand where those boundaries are. Just knowing over time, some of those understandings may have been recorded, and some of them may have been, it was known that it existed, but no one actually had documentation of what that may or may not have been. So, yeah, those 12 and 3 that have done that would be covered, as my understanding, the 4 and 3 that have not would likely fall outside of the ability to purchase flood insurance underneath the county's participation.
so Aaron or Tyler, do either one of you know what the expectations of what FEMA is looking for from a county or from a township to have this type of authority?
Yeah, I think it varies quite a bit. FEMA hasn't really been questioning what counties or townships have for an agreement. They're just trying to see what there is. And so I think it's pretty wide open. I don't think they're, requiring that it be this or it be that. They're just trying to see what is in existence. And I think that's their primary concern at this point.
So Aaron, it is Aaron.
Aaron,
You mentioned that whatever ordinance is on record, that it has to be okayed by FEMA. Did I catch that right?
Yes, and Ramsey County is a participating community already, and so their ordinance would have already been reviewed and approved by FEMA at the last check-in that FEMA had with the county.
So if the townships have done their own, they would also have to have an ordinance that was okayed by FEMA. Correct?
That is correct.
So Aaron, this is Bo Cummings. I'm the state's attorney. I'm over in the corner. I don't know if you can see me. But so with that in mind, if a township has an ordinance, then in theory, they should be eligible to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. Is that correct?
Right, if they go into the joining process to join the National Flood Insurance Program as a community, and as part of that is showing submitting a land use ordinance that meets FEMA's and the state's minimum standards, then yes, they would be able to participate separately, and then the people within the township would be able to buy flood insurance through the township's participation.
The only reason I ask that is because we have some I'll say feisty townships within Ramsey County that like to be a little independent, so in theory, it's available to them if they go through all the steps, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, yep, and we have a number of examples of townships that have done just that, where they administer it on the township level, issue permits, review development, perspectives or considerations, and they do that on their own. But also there is the avenue where they could also join the county, and I guess one of the from a state perspective, making sure that all townships that have a willingness to pursue this, but are looking at what options are available to them, making sure that those options are current. But yeah, you're absolutely right. If they want to do it on their own, they definitely have that as an option.
And just to clarify on the legal end for Ramsey County, our ordinance on file, that's our Model C ordinance, is that right? From about 22,000, does that sound right?
Yeah, I'm not sure, I don't have the records up, but is that the latest? Is that the Model C from around year 2000?
That's what I have, but if you have something more current, I wouldn't mind if you send it back to me.
I think, unless Tyler can say otherwise, I think we'll double check.
Yeah, it's showing on the community status book that the current effective map date is June of 2001.
So that I think is the accompanying firm map that goes with the ordinance.
Correct.
Okay, then we're all on the same page. That's all I got, thank you. Sorry for
No,
taking
perfect.
over.
no. Thank you for that. Any other questions?
So if the township doesn't want to do it, but they have their own zoning, we need a specific document specifying that they're gonna participate under the county's authority for the floodplain management specifically.
Yeah, it sounds like some sort of relinquishment. Townships giving it up to the county.
Townships can, if they want to retain the planning and zoning, but they don't want to deal with the floodplain management, they can just relinquish that to the county. It would just have to specify that in the agreement.
So that's what you're looking for. If the counties haven't done it on their own, you're looking for those evidence of those agreements then. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's what FEMA's gonna be looking for, and yeah, it's, yes, that's correct.
Do either of you know if Ramsey County has any floodplain or national flood insurance participants that would be in jeopardy if we didn't have something in place this year? Because is this something that FEMA's looking for this year, this flooding season?
I can tell you that FEMA is working right now. They just had a meeting yesterday with representatives at FEMA headquarters regarding what would happen with existing policies. It's my understanding that no decision has been made at this time. It has been the recommendation from FEMA Region 8, which is our region out of Denver, that however they would exactly have to do it, I don't know, but they basically would take the community ID and transfer it to that township. If you have someone that's been paying their flood insurance premium in good faith for several years, it would be best if we could just take that community ID and transfer it to that township if they choose to join. Or if there's an agreement that's already in place where the county is taking that or handling that for the township. But again, no decision has been made on that at this point. We don't know when that decision will be coming. So.
Anybody have anything else they'd like to ask Aaron or Tyler? And Aaron, do you want to briefly touch on that House Bill 1098 that went through the legislative session this year?
Yeah, so just pull up the document here so I can double check what the exact language is. But yeah, so the Department of Emergency Services put forward House Bill 1098 as a red tape reduction bill on behalf of floodplain management. And so what the bill does is so the current language in state law actually had a higher penalty than the federal government did for those areas that did not participate in the National Flood Insurance Program but had a flood hazard identified. So let's say the township doesn't participate, they haven't yielded authority to a county, a flood happens. As disaster relief dollars and government declares a disaster, gets federal disaster relief dollars. As those disaster relief dollars get to the county and are to be spent, the state actually has currently an ordinance that would say that township or that community would be ineligible for any flood disaster assistance, financial or otherwise, or any other state funds. So right now, and that's a pretty big shift from where the federal law is. And so what 1098 did is essentially, the way FEMA looks at it is from a disaster relief perspective, if a flood hazard has been identified, it's insurable structures that are not eligible for disaster relief dollars, but utilities, roads, other community assets would still be able to receive relief dollars, just not those insurable buildings or structures that would have otherwise been able to be covered by the National Flood Insurance Program. So that 1098 essentially unlocked, removed a fairly substantial hurdle as far as disaster relief dollars and getting those and applying those to the state that the state had as a higher standard, for several years. So that did go through and that did get passed, in my understanding.
Okay. Anything else?
The three policies that were denied, were they new policies or policies that were in place that just got denied?
I know one specifically was an existing policy where the claim was denied. I believe prior claims, and I think it was 2019 and 2011 claims were paid on that policy, and how it made it through that process then, and it didn't raise the red flags, but now, or last year in 2022, it did. I guess I don't know what happened there, but yeah, so that's the other two. I'm not entirely certain if those were also in that same county or if they were elsewhere. I would have to check.
Anybody else? Other questions? I have none from my phone. I had given the people the YouTube link to be able to watch. Steve Moe, our IT, nobody else is on Teams.
No.
And no questions. Anybody else? Mr. Cummings?
I don't got anything. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both for taking time out of your evenings and joining us tonight. Any questions for us?
I think just that, again, thank you for the opportunity. And again, as this moves forward, I mean, it's inevitable to be a lot more questions or considerations or what happens next. And by all means, please reach out to us early and often. We're here to help coordinate and facilitate and make sure that we're all working together to find a solution to any of these issues as they arise.
Perfect.
Yes, Thank you for the opportunity this evening.
Yeah, thank you both. I would have preferred if FEMA would have put on their letter study. For study purposes, we are requesting this information. And that would have given a lot less heartburn moving forward, but I appreciate you guys clarifying and taking the time out of your evening. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda would be, is it Kevin? Bryce, Mr. Crosby. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I just want to give you a few things here first. Some of the stuff. The first thing I have here, if you would take one and pass it around, I guess, is just a thing that I'm working on. It's a little brochure and stuff too. And this next group of stuff is some of the stuff that we're going through when I was in Washington D.C. Sorry, I guess I should start that out. I'm here to just kind of address what transpired at the end of February, at the beginning of March, when I went to Washington D.C. I got selected for the American Legion to be on a Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation Commission at Washington D.C. to address some of our legislators and stuff. So they were kind enough to give me some time off for that, so I got to go. And I just wanted to discuss with you some of the things in brief, what transpired and stuff. Yeah, you guys can have this. I was not able to appropriate all of enough materials from them for every commissioner here, but I got one set for each of the counties that I work with, so if you want to look at. I think one of the most important documents is probably the one at the bottom there to address is all the different legislative stuff that we were going through there. I want to say I had a wonderful time. I flew out and got there late Friday evening. I flew out on Friday and got there, got into the hotel, and then Saturday morning I basically had the whole day Saturday off, so I got to see all the Smithsonian museums and stuff and wander around the mall. I found out that the tourists don't go out there until about 10 o'clock when the museum's open, so from 7 till then I had the whole mall and stuff basically to myself to see all the stuff. I was FaceTiming my girls and I walked up to the Supreme Court door and knocked on it, so no one answered. So it was a really good time. Sunday morning I got to go to Arlington Cemetery. The first things I saw there was some and I didn't get a video of this, or I tried to, but they were doing like some general orders calling out at the very beginning when they first showed up for the day that I didn't realize they did. But I stayed there for quite a while and I actually saw 2 wreath layings. The first one was for Cub Scouts and the second was for the Sons of the American Legion. I thought that was fate, because I belonged to both of those organizations and stuff. So that was really wonderful too. And then we got to work on Sunday. I met with the other representatives from North Dakota. All together, there was 5 of us. There was myself, Vernon Lanning, who had been there before. He kind of headed up, made all the appointments with the senators and the representative for us. We had a gentleman from the Legion, Brad Huber, Clarence Carroll, who is going to be the next commander of the American Legion for North Dakota. And then we had Kenny Wiederholt, who's an old head, he used to be the commander for North Dakota. So we got through there, we had a meeting together to discuss, our plan of action and stuff and how things were gonna roll. They don't get into a lot of it before you get down there. So it was kind of go or play as you go, so to speak. So we got in there and I got into a meeting with everyone, and there's a lot of roll calls, because they want to make sure that the commission is there and the committee members and stuff. So I had to go through a couple of those. I ended up into one area called Veterans Affairs Administration. If you look through the brochure that I gave you and stuff, you'll see that's breaking up. Some of the teams might be national security. Another of the teams might be, I think they had employment, veterans employment and rehabilitation and stuff down there too. So I was on the Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation, and then subsequently on a subcommittee for Veterans Benefits. So it fell right into the Veteran Service Officer job and stuff. And I noticed when I was in there that there's, different committee members. If those that weren't veteran service officers and stuff, sometimes those old legionnaires would come up and say things that would address issues to the wrong department of the VA. The VA is broken up between the Veterans Benefits Administration, which is myself. I help veterans get disability benefits, GI Bill, stuff like that. And then there's Veterans Health Administration, which handles the medical, the clinic, the hospital, and then finally the National Cemetery, which is memorial affairs, the monuments that we get for the veterans, and then manages like the new veteran cemetery and stuff. So they broke up into different groups. And then from there, we get to meet with some of the main players or some of the undersecretaries and stuff for the VA and discuss what issues are going on within the VA. Like, for example, the PACT Act that just came out, which has a huge effect on some of the veterans because it opened up a lot of areas for our Vietnam veterans, such as Guam and Thailand and Malaysia, to qualify for Agent Orange benefits. And it also opened up things like hypertension, which a lot of veterans getting that age have it. But if they were over in Vietnam and they had the hypertension, guess what? It's presumptive. So I just need to say, yes, you've been diagnosed with this. And yes, you were over in Vietnam or one of those other areas, so now you got a disability. You might not get a percent on it, but at least it's in the books there. And some of that stuff opens up a lot of our veterans that weren't utilizing the Veterans Health Administration because they couldn't get that disability. So they're going to have to get in there with priority 8. So either that or they're going to have to pay cost shares and co-pays and stuff too. So it's been increasing here a lot. In fact, I was running here late because I had a gentleman drive all the way from Annetta to Dakota. I'm not going to turn him away until I get all his paperwork done and stuff too. So with that, we go through some of the legislative stuff and we listed those things. And then we get back together and we discuss all the things that were brought up in the other subcommittee. So I was in Veterans Benefits. I got to hear what transpired in the cemetery because it falls under Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation. So after that, we get together with our North Dakota group and figure out, okay, what was important to us to bring up to our legislators and stuff. So out of the 5 of us that went, for example, our head guy, he picked up the main issue for our legislators. So we were, the next morning, we were off and running to the Representative Kramer's or Armstrong's office right away. So we had that going. So we sit down with his staff and then you just basically wait for the senator or representative to come in and say hi and bye and run out to their next meeting or voting and stuff. So you deal mostly with their staff. And except for Senator Hogan's office, the other 2 offices, their staff are very young folks in there. It's like weird. I think they're mostly volunteers and stuff too, but Senator Hogan's office, we got one of his key staff guys, very knowledgeable. Whenever we brought up a legislative bill or something, he knew right away what was going on with it. Our reception was really good on there. We get a lot of military support from all our political leaders in Washington, D.C. and throughout North Dakota. North Dakota has always been kind to its veteran staff, or to the veterans folks around here and stuff too. I think someone had mentioned that North Dakota is trying to be #1 in a state for veterans and stuff. And the way they're going, it seems to be going that way because now we also have tax exemption for our military service members and stuff too going on within the state, opening a lot more opportunities for us. So some of the legislative stuff that we brought up was the PTSD and suicide because that was the main thing on there. And Vernon Lanning, that was kind of his thing. He was the guy, he was the old hat guy, so he took on the most important thing that was for the Legion and brought up to the legislators. Another guy we had was Clarence Carroll, and he had been over in Afghanistan and he had worked with the interpreters and stuff. So all those Afghanistan interpreters that were brought over here are sitting here in limbo and basically like a containment area because they don't have the documentation to get citizenship. You can't go send a letter to Afghanistan and, hey, can we have your criminal record and your passport and military ID? So they're kind of in limbo over there, so he brought that up. Another guy from the Navy, Brad Huber, brought up the fact that the Coast Guard guys, when we have the government goes into default or whatever because they're not paying. So all the military, because they're essential workers, got paid, but not the Coast Guard guys because they're not under the Department of Defense. So they're trying to get legislation to change that and make them essential workers. Last time the American Legion footed the bill for those Coast Guard guys that weren't getting paid, and I don't think they wanted to do that anymore. So that was one of their issues that they were trying to push. And at the meeting, some Coast Guard retiree yells out, "Don't forget about the retirees." And I guess they didn't get paid either, but we didn't even think about that. Another issue that I had for myself was the disability payments, a co-payment for, for the retirement and for the disability. Right now, if you have a military disability below 50%, it gets deducted from your retirement pay. So if you work at Halliburton or KBR or Northrop Grumman, and you do your 8 years or 20 years in the service, but go work for them, you're still gonna get your retirement pay from Northrop Grumman, plus you're gonna get your disability if you do your military service. But if you do 20 years in the military service and get a disability at that rate, you're gonna get it deducted. So it's just, that way those percentages that are lower will get both. Another thing I had brought up on there was the National Guard parity. So we have a lot of National Guard reserve soldiers getting a lot of active duty time. So they would prorate the GI Bill. So if you do 10 years of service, you would get half the GI Bill allotted to your family. So if you do 5 and a quarter and so on, so they prorate the GI Bill to give another benefit for all these National Guard reservists who are doing these continuous active duty deployments. Right now, they're not entitled to that stuff. Another thing I had on there, because I actually had a case like this, was to make those lawyers that you see on TV for Camp Lejeune, right? Some of them are good, some of them are not. Some of them are scam artists, and they're good for some of the civilians and civilian contractors and stuff that were over at Camp Lejeune to help them get that benefit because it wasn't afforded to them. But the veterans were afforded that right through the VA a long time ago, so they could put in for they were always subjected to Camp Lejeune and get payments. Well, the veterans see that on TV and they call the lawyer, and I had one, and he had his case easy. He was going to get that done after the last the add-on of the cancer. We were just waiting. But he called the lawyer, and as soon as you do that, I cannot work on your case anymore because you have a legal representative. Fargo can't work on your case anymore. Oh, and by the way, that lawyer, the legal company now charged him $1,000 a month for basically having him just call him one night, when he wasn't in the right state of mind. But there's, the government because those lawyers aren't accredited VSOs, they can't go against them. And so they're trying to change that right now. And keep in mind, those lawyers are still needed for those civilians and contractors who are at Camp Lejeune, but there are some out there that are taking advantage of the system. And there are some other things out there too where some of the veterans get scammed like that too. So we have legislation out there to try to get that resolved so they be held accountable. So we go to all these offices and we try to pitch. I found out I'm a lobbyist. I know that's kind of sad. So I did my lobbying and stuff on there, and they listen and nod their head and stuff. And but I find when all these bills and stuff come out there, if they really, really, really support that bill, then they need to co-sponsor it. So they can giving me lip service, but if they have a co-sponsor on the bill, then they're up for it and stuff too. And a lot of times we'll have stuff in the military that has bipartisan support, but it's fiscally heavy on the DoD budget. So it might go through the committee, it might get bipartisan support, but then the chairman, they have a lot of power. If they feel they don't want to bring that up for a vote, it can sit back and then it has to wait until next year to get up for a vote again. So those heads of those the Senate and representative chambers have a lot of power with them too. So we got to keep up with that and make sure that not only do our representatives support it, we got to make sure that the bill gets out there and then it's voted on. and kept up on. So I have homework now for a while until I can track and see all of our major issues, get addressed and then voted for by our representatives. And I think for us on the North Dakota side, we have really, again, I can't reiterate how fortunate we are. We have such a pro-military state and stuff too. It's really nice. So, but it was a wonderful trip. I learned a lot. So I want to thank you. So, do we have any questions or? I know I speak fast.
It sounds like an awful lot of red tape that comes along with the veterans seeking services from your office.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's no shortage of that. So,
Oh, yes. They're dealing with insurance agencies and
no.
sometimes with the medical facilities or looking over, what's the definition of this veteran for this certain benefit, because sometimes it can vary, whether it's 1 day in service or to complete your 8-year obligation and stuff. So you gotta kind of navigate it, but I guess that justifies my job, so.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for what you do for our community, and we're very proud that you were able to attend that conference in Washington, D.C.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate the update. And,
Yep, I appreciate you allowing me to go and stuff, so.
yep,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin,
Yes. I don't have too much to discuss today, but we got quite a few more of our summer maintenance contracts in. The list there, we have to add the City of Devils Lake, North Creel, and Prospect Townships. Those came in after I had a chance to make all this. So,
your
we need a,
agenda,
yep,
that was, okay.
looking for a motion to have the auditor and the chairman sign those summer maintenance contracts.
I will so move.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second that the chairman and auditor sign the summer maintenance contracts for the highway department and the townships. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
So the only one we have left now is Sullivan Township. We have the rest of them in. And the only other thing I have to bring up is more of a heads up. This is the time of year when we replace all of our broken glass in our trucks and our motor graders. And for whatever reason, we had quite a bit this year, so it might, I don't have an estimate what it's gonna be, but it might go over $2,500, so that's just a heads up for now.
Okay. Appreciate that. All the roads in good spring operating.
The standard answer is yes.
Yeah, well, I've mentioned this to you before and I'll reiterate those comments is that we very much appreciate you and your staff's hard work throughout this trying, difficult winter season. Thank you and your crew for the work that they've done and keeping the complaints to a minimum. So we really appreciate you guys. Thank you. Anything else?
No, not for now. I think I'm gonna look into buying a bigger snow blower, but I haven't started looking at prices yet, so when I get prices put together, I'll let you know where we're at.
Okay.
I too would like to thank Jason, even though a lot of us don't like Facebook and all. But he put some posts out there for active action when he was out in the snow and all, showing people what it was like and say, to help those people stay home and all that kind of stuff. You know what? That hit a spot with a lot of people. Yeah, it did.
We could probably go ahead and mention that if you don't need to be on county or township roads this time of year, please stay off them. The maintenance is incredibly expensive and time consuming and difficult to get done. So these roads are soft and squishy and wet and if we don't need to travel on them, let's try to stay away from those if we could. So certainly appreciate that cooperation from the public.
Yeah.
Um,
Load limits aren't on yet, but I see it coming soon, maybe even this week yet.
Look on their radio, he said Benson County put some.
Yeah, Benson does jump the gun, I mean, that's
They-
typical for
they-
them.
More follow south of 200.
Yep,
South of 200 and creeping its way up.
yep, south of 200 is all on now, and everything west of Rugby is all on now, so.
Won't be long,
Okay.
so. Anything else for Kevin? Again, thank you. Any other old business? Nothing's listed. New business, we have a raffle permit to approve.
I will move to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the raffle permit. Any further discussion? I think it's for Church's Ferry Alumni Association, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. My computer's being slow. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Raffle permit is approved. Audio-visual discussion, this is something that I asked to be put on the agenda for tonight. Steve Moe was good enough to get gentleman up from ABI company out of Bismarck to come take a look at our meeting rooms within the courthouse to perhaps improve the sound, video capabilities that we're delivering, whether it be our commission meetings or others that we host within the building. So there's the commission meeting room, the big meeting room in the basement, the historical room in the basement, and then the armory over in the memorial building. And Mr. Butts came through, looked everything over with myself, Steve Moe, Chris Jager. Roger was there for a portion of the meeting, Gunderson, our building supervisor. And so we kind of took a look and he took measurements and some pictures and videos of the rooms, and we kind of asked him to give us some options of what we could do and enhance our quality of what we're putting out there for the public. So just wanted to make everybody aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it.
I think that'd be very useful.
Well, I've had people that have watched our previous meetings, our commission meetings, and said sometimes they could hear commissioners okay, not always, but sometimes, and sometimes the audience gets blurred and difficult time hearing the audience or who in the audience is actually talking. So we're gonna have maybe a couple different options that they're gonna present to make that possible, whether it be through Teams or what have you. So be a good positive thing for the county to take a look at. Anybody have any questions on that? Steve, you have anything to add? Chris, anything? No. A lot of different capabilities out there. It just comes down to how much money do we want to spend? We can do a whole wall of video screens and cameras but is that the best use of our dollars? Maybe not. So more to come on that later. Any visitors? Anybody online? Nothing? Sheriff Lang, anything?
Just report that our computers came in and we're setting them up, so we're happy they got in here before the CAD system's ready to go out.
No, good. Glad to hear that. Chris?
Open everything, open the milk, go slow.
Open the melt, go slow, and so far, been pretty perfect.
Been really good.
Really nice. I know we'd all like warmer weather, but, sometimes a slow and easy gradual increase in temperature is better. So expecting snow later this week. Hopefully it doesn't happen. I'd rather have, but, sometimes when you spread that moisture out with snow, it doesn't rush the, spring flood up any, so. With that, anything else?
I'd like to add that I went up and drove 20 up to Highway 9 yesterday. And then I went east over to Hamden, went north, and I took the county line over to 1. And when you drive north, when you get to Webster, you see that yourself up there, it's a whole different world with snow. And when you get to Starkweather and east a couple miles, there's not hardly any, all the way to county over to Highway 1. And then likewise back, most of the stuff up in that 17 north, that direction, there's not gonna be a lot of water at the present. There's water running, but it's not gonna be, because there just is no snow left.
The mad dash like there was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of culverts up there have opened up in the last few days and
Yeah.
water's moving.
Well, the weather service, their last outlook still looked like a, 95% chance of a half a foot with that, 50% chance of going up a full foot from where we're at, so, given the amount of moisture, the amount of snow that we had, that's good. Any amount of increase certainly hurts, landowners who are trying to farm around the lake, and, that's nothing new.
And we were lucky too that we didn't have no deep frost this year, so
Right,
there's a fair amount of this moisture soaked in.
yeah, should make for hopefully a really good growing season,
Hopefully.
so. We'll knock on wood a couple times, so, yeah, so. With that, anything else, comments from,
I'll just give you an update. The bids came in for the event center out at the fairgrounds. And one was 3.7, one was 3.4, one was 2.8. Then decided we accepted the low bid, but we're not ready to start buying materials or breaking ground. We're gonna do some more fundraising. That's a focus for the fair board and the foundation. I don't know if Lindsay and the gals up at Extension were just teasing me or what, but May 1st, there's a painting class out at the event center. They suggested I go, but if Bill wants to go, he'd be more than welcome. And the 28th, the library have a book sale, so.
okay,
You say they did accept a little bit?
They acknowledged it or whatever, but we're not, he's been informed that the money isn't there, so we're, he's willing to wait and see how things go down the road.
That's a plus.
Last Thursday or Friday, he got a call from the steel or the building company, said that Monday, the price of the steel for that building was going up 8%, and he said, geez, you gotta hold it till Friday, we'll see what we can do. So that's why they had the meeting. They weren't gonna accept, they were gonna wait for a little bit. And we decided, well, that's just gonna be the cost of doing business, and instead of 2.8, we're just gonna have to raise 3 million, so.
Our culvert prices went down, that's why I was curious.
Yeah. Well, he said everybody, I suppose it's building time and,
Oh, sure.
I don't know, that's,
Future orders, yeah.
so we're. I'll go back to the drawing board, but we're pumping the brakes anyway.
Good deal. Anything else? I would certainly like to take this opportunity to thank Paul Visted, retiring executive director of Devils Lake Chamber. Paul has been with the chamber for a number of years, and I think Friday is her last day as executive director. And over the years, she's been a great promoter of our community and our businesses that are chamber members, and been very positive for the Devils Lake community. So publicly, Paula, if you're watching, thank you. And best of luck to Susie Kenner, tourism director, now taking double duty as executive director for the Devils Lake Chamber. So publicly acknowledge that. And with that, if nothing else, meeting adjourned.